It was pumped out to the residents of Brooklyn. It was correct. Brick with hydraulic cement that would come from Rosendale, New York. And that was a natural limestone that was buried in there. That was just basically you crushed it up, you cooked it, and you have natural cement as soon as you add the water. And hydraulic cement, remember, is set in water and was perfect. Okay, so clearly there's no water in here. So what happened? The water was basically kept here until the 80s. To the 1980s. This was actually used as a reservoir until the 50s. This was kept as backup for the 80s, at which point a couple of kids from the neighborhood were swimming and they drowned at various times. The family sued the city, and the city lost because even though there was a chain link fence up at the time, this was a new fence that was put in 2013. The whole path that we're walking on was refurbished in 2013. And before that it wasn't so nice. Anyway, they had the chain link fence. Kids would cut holes in it, they'd hop it, and they'd go swimming. So the city lost the case, and the judge declared the reservoir and its last and so after a few of those court settlements, the city was like, I didn't have to get rid of the water. And so that was the what lines the bottom of the reservoir? And the answer is it was clay that was gotten from the surrounding areas. So the same clay that was used to make these bricks and to build the tenements. The Hudson Valley, all the way up to Haverstraw, down to Staten Island, had a lot of clay. And all that was mines, gold, harvested, whatever you want to call it, to make bricks. In fact, in Staten Island, there's a park called Clay Pit Park. So if you take clay and you tap it down, you then have an impervious surface, just like a clay pot. That was what the bottom was made of. The walls is actually concrete. I should have pointed out the bluestone. When we get around the reservoir, you'll see originally this was bluestone. The very top, this coping stone. On the other side, it's granite. So the sloped part of the wall is granite, and also came just from local sources. The bluestone would come from the Catskills. Why do I bring that up? Bluestone is the main stone in the Catskills where our present water supply comes from. The reason that New York City's water tastes as it does, it tastes pretty good to the palate, is because of the minerals of bluestone. And I'm kind of disappointed with myself for not stopping the first place that we could have seen the bluestone, but we will see it, and we'll see it shortly. So that is where our water is coming from now. So we have bluestone, we have granite with concrete, and then at the bottom you have clay, about there are several layers of clay that were deposited and tapped down. In the 19th century, it could have been cheap, or they could have used rollers. In Central Park, which was actually built the same year, 1858, they used sheep. Here, I think they used rollers. Question?
bluestone like a type of slate?
Yeah, it's a sedimentary. Yes, and it cleans. And so sidewalks are made from bluestone, like in the historic neighborhoods like Bed-Stuy, Greenwich Village. Same thing. And part of the reason for that is Boss Tweed, you know, the famed mayor, the corrupt mayor, he owns, or had ownership in a lot of the bluestone quarries. And it's still used today to, you know, to make paths and stuff. But it's, anyway, it's the predominant stone in the Catskills where our reservoirs are, and again, it gives that nice taste to our water because of the minerals that's contained in it. Other questions? All right, so where are we standing? This is a gatehouse. You can see some of the plumbing. These would have been, actually I'm not going to speculate what they were. I think there used to be valves, so I will speculate, but I'm not sure. Inside the building, there are definitely valves. I've been inside. You may or may not have pictures in the slides that I sent you. If you're curious to see what it looks like inside, just email back the note that was sent to you with some of the slides, and we can send you images of what it looks like inside. I work with this company, NYC H2O. We do nature programs for families, for adults, and for school groups. And we bring a lot of groups here, and so we'd actually like to see this repurposed as a visitor center. You know, a lot to learn at the reservoir, a lot to see, a lot to do. So, gatehouse. What is the purpose of a gatehouse? The water came in from the south side of the reservoir, that's north, south, filled the reservoir, and would flow out through gates that were at the water level into the distribution system to Brooklyn downhill from here. So we'll take a look at what I'm talking about. Can everyone just take an edge of the map, please? Great. Nate, do you want to help to hold it, please? Okay. So here we are at the Ridgewood Reservoir. The water came in from the south via this conduit. It got pumped in the pumping station at these two pumping stations, which are at the corner of Atlantic and Logan, up 4th Street Avenue into the reservoir. This map is 100 years old. It's 1903. This is a U.S. Geologic Survey map of all the water systems on Long Island. Brooklyn is the westernmost edge of Long Island. This map, if I were to have printed the whole thing, would have gone a long way down, maybe to that sign. Right. And Montauk is the easternmost end. That sign where that yellow shirted runner is right now. So, but I wasn't about to print out that map. It would have been hard to carry and a little unwieldy. And but Brooklyn is the westernmost end of Long Island. And this was Brooklyn's original distribution system, the dark blue there. Okay, the water went out from here into this distribution system. Okay, I'm going to stop talking for a bit. Questions about the map or anything?
What's the road?
Yeah. So Brooklyn originally was just Brooklyn Heights. In 1852, I sent you a map from 1852 that shows Brooklyn, Williamsburg, and Bushwick, 3 separate municipalities. In 1854, Brooklyn and Williamsburg and Bushwick joined forces to pool their resources to build the Ridgewood Reservoir. The subsequent map that you have in your slides is from 1874. It shows Brooklyn, Williamsburg, and Bushwick as a combined city. Now, Brooklyn there were other cities in Brooklyn County. They were Flatbush, Gravesend, New Utrecht, and Flatlands. Eventually, by the end of the 19th century, by the end of the 1800s, Brooklyn would acquire those cities. Yes, those municipalities. But until it did, they had their own private water companies. This one was called Blytheburn. That was the historic name of the neighborhood. This was Flatbush Water Company. Jamaica Water Company, and so on. part of the problem is that Brooklyn spent all this money to acquire all these cities. It ran out of money by the end of the 1800s. And not only did it run out of money, it actually will run out of water. As we said, Brooklyn was the third largest city in the country. It was a powerhouse for industry. And this was before electricity. So the primary power by an industry were steam engines, which used many thousand gallons of water a day. The beer industry in Bushwick, where there were many German breweries, like Rheingold, like Ulmer. We have a beer tour of Bushwick in a few weeks. Bushwick was the brewing capital of the United States up until Prohibition. So from the time that the Ridgewood Reservoir was built until Prohibition, Bushwick was the brewing capital of the entire United States. People, and as I mentioned as we were walking on the other side, indoor plumbing. There was this great demand on water. So Brooklyn ran out of money because it bought up the rest of Brooklyn County. Brooklyn City ran out of money. Brooklyn ran out of water because its population grew, because of industry, and because of the beer industry. So, what was it to do? In 1898, Brooklyn again consolidates, but this time with New York City, because New York City had water coming from the Croton system, and it was much more plentiful and reliable than what they had. Also, there was already a plan to reach up to the Catskill Mountains to get water from there. Okay, I'm going to stop talking. Please, ask questions if anything is not.
At the point when Brooklyn got together and became part of New York City, were any of what we now refer to as the new boroughs and blocks, were they already part of New York City?
Nope. So in
Brooklyn was the first to get the
So in 1898, you have what's called the consolidation, and that was when the greater city of New York was created, and the creation of the 5 boroughs. All together. That's right. So Queens was like farmland and the hinterlands. Same with Richmond County or Staten Island. Yeah. Bronx was the annexed district.
And so to find drinkable water, there was nothing that could come from East Bay and Tweed. Had to be
Yeah. By the end of the 19th century, this water was so polluted they had to stop oystering decades before actually. Yeah, all of Jamaica Bay, this was prime oyster zones because you had all these freshwater streams. Thank you. You have all these freshwater streams coming down from the hills of Long Island. This is all contour lines. When the contours are close together, that indicates a steep gradient. And so like we're up on a hill now. And you can see that we are because all the contours are close together. So you have all these streams flowing downhill, entering into Jamaica Bay. Oysters love a combination of fresh water and salt water, brackish water. And so this was like the heart of the oyster industry. Eventually, all the waters in New York City would just become polluted with sewage and chemicals and so forth that they had to stop for the oyster. But look, south of Oyster Bay. Other questions? Yes, that is called
the Governor's Island, is it?
Yes. That's called the New York Harbor Foundation and the Billion Oyster Project. They work together. The same organization. I don't know.
They're looking for these waters, or is there also New Jersey area?
They're just New York City. Yeah, because Jersey has their own regulations. It's hard to bridge that gap.
When they started getting water from New York City, did they fill pipes under the river, or they went over the Brooklyn Bridge? So
it would take until 1917 for Brooklyn to actually get New York City's water, and that was because that's when the Catskill system got built.
So they dug under the river.
Yeah, absolutely. Other questions?
So you mentioned that the rain, the Reservoir was considered
Yeah.
part of the glacier.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about it more when we get to the other side, and we have a better view of the cliff and the bay. But Diane's absolutely right. So this we are up on a hill. You might have driven up the hill to get here, and you can see it because again the contour lines are close together here, and it was formed by a glacier in the last ice age 17,000 years ago. So we're on a hill that was formed by glaciers. How? My understanding is that the glacier, as it moved along, would pick up rocks, giant boulders, and eventually it would melt. And those boulders would be deposited, and we're standing on a hill of boulders. More about that later. But other questions?
This is a pipe.
That is the Brooklyn Aqueduct.
And it still exists.
It still exists, and it is underneath Conduit Avenue, in between North Conduit and South Conduit, in that green road.
And it goes to Massapequa or continue?
It stops in Massapequa. That was the farthest east that it went. There were 15 reservoirs that supplied the Brooklyn system, Baisley Pond, Simonson Pond, and so forth. 15 altogether. And again, when this was first built, starting in the 1850s, that was all the hinterlands and farmland. So it was very good quality water. Eventually they would become developed, especially by Jamaica. This is the area around Jamaica. They would actually have to take this offline because of sewage running into the reservoir with Baisley Pond. Again, the water was pumped via the aqueduct and then pumped again from Atlantic Avenue up Fourth Street Avenue into the basement.
What was the diameter of the...
Sure. It was 7 feet tall and just a little bit across wide. And I have a picture of that. I did not send it to you. But again, if you respond to the email that was sent to you, and we'd like that image of the Brooklyn Aqueduct, we'll send it to you. We can also send you this map. Not this actual, a digital image, a high resolution image.
When the city shut this down, did they fill it with dirt, or is this natural blown in?
This was drained in around 1980. We're not sure the date. Parks Department has it on its website, 1989. It's not confirmed. We're waiting for confirmation from the DEP. DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, that is our water utility. They owned the property until 2004. 2004 it was given to the Parks Department. But to answer your question, once it was drained, there was a foot layer of decaying vegetative matter, and it just made its way in because there would be leaves or whatever that would get into these ponds. Eventually they get into this reservoir. Once the water was here, anything would settle out. And after 100 years of use, you had about a foot layer of dirt. The answer to your question is, nature did all of this. There was no human intervention. Why? Because we're next to a poor neighborhood and a cemetery. The city did nothing with this land because that's how the city works. If you're next to a poor neighborhood, the representation is not there, and neither is the political will. East New York, which is the adjacent neighborhood of Cypress Hills, was the two poorest neighborhoods in the city. Question?
And your timeline, the cemeteries there around here, when did they end?
Also around this time, around the time that this was built.
1980, or about when they registered in the court.
Right, 1850s. There was the Rural Cemeteries Act, which there were two acts. There was one that in the 1830s that said you can have no more cemeteries in the map. That was one law. And there was another law that said you cannot have more than 50 acres of cemetery in any one county. So since we're right on the border of Brooklyn and Queens, they put 50 acres on the Queens side of the border and 50 acres on the Brooklyn side. And that's why you'll see many cemeteries here. Also, because again this hill was formed by the boulders that were inside the glacial ice, it was a rocky terrain, is what I hear, and not great for farming, so good for bearing food.
Is there any talk nowadays about making trails in there? Or?
Well, I would like to see trails. Would anyone else like to be able to access the nature? Yeah. So the Parks Department has had this property for 13 years, had some ideas that the neighborhood didn't agree with. The Parks Department actually wanted to bulldoze this wall that we're standing on, right? And bulldoze the trees and put in a turf field. Luckily, the city went bankrupt not bankrupt. The city, the economy tanked in 2007, and that put the kibosh in that plan. And that was even with the community advocating for a more natural use of the space. And so what's happened since 2014 when we began programming, let me back up, NYCH2O is a nonprofit. We, again, do these adult and family programs, mostly school programs. We do field trips here. So we use these maps, we play games with kids, we run with them, we build an aqueduct with the kids, with binoculars. It's an interactive experience. People learn better when they're on site. This is why we have an open house rule. So we have brought almost 3,000 students here over the last 4 years, and this is something that the neighborhood groups, community boards, and other organizations have been able to rally behind. And so we've been a unifying voice to get the city to come to the table, and so finally, let's make this a nature center. And it's a slow process, but the Parks Department, is limited in their ability and what they can do. We want to be the stewards that help drive this through. What have we done to make it possible? We've written the application to make the site a national landmark. Hopefully that will be official in December. We've advocated that the site be a freshwater wetland. There's not been a freshwater wetland designated in New York City in decades. It's significant because freshwater wetlands are protected under federal law, the Clean Water Act. You cannot touch freshwater wetlands. And if you do, it has to be done in a very environmentally sensitive way. What else have we done? We've advocated for traffic safety measures. So as I said, in December, come back, there should be a traffic light there that you press the button and you don't have to risk your life to cross that street. Okay, that's enough. Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll keep going. Okay. So while I'm folding this up, can you guys just say your name and what your interest in reservoirs or open house or infrastructure, whatever? Why don't we start with Diane?
Retired science teacher with science club. Whether you're architects, I have a dual interest in city planning.
Where? And I live in Manhattan, and I like these couple of areas there that are very well.
In the city, and of course it's a good opportunity to discover some part of Brooklyn that we never been earlier.
Beautiful.
I'm a Brooklyn architect and
Ryan and New York City. I love New York water.
That's right. Bushwick is one of the adjacent neighborhoods.
I'm Marissa. I just like to do tours of, behind the scenes, New York, pretty much. Laura, I came here because I was curious.
Bill, never been here. Want to see someplace different.
Awesome.
I'm Chris, and we just go to Open House New York every year, and we actually went on plenty of tours about like the Croton Aqueduct and all the water and all that stuff. So we've taken a lot of water-centric tours.
I'm Jeff. I'm a lawyer. I've lived in New York most of my life, New York City, but there's still a lot of places I haven't seen. I've volunteered for Open House New York in the past, and now I'm showing my youngest son around a little bit.
All right. Welcome.
Nate.
I'm Nate. You brought me.
Well done. All right. So let's keep going.
You're happy you came, right?
Seems like every time we take a tour and all down to water. Yeah.
We're facing the gatehouse.
Even if we don't need to, it's like we're really
There are 3 basins in the reservoir. Originally there were 2. We shared them. Which is at the junction of the first and second basins. Because Brooklyn grew so quickly, it ran out of water, and by 1890 they had to build this 3rd basin, which basically doubled the capacity of the reservoir. So the first 2 basins were a combined 25 acres, and this 3rd basin is itself 25 acres, so we doubled the capacity. Altogether, we have 300 million gallons. So 150 in this one, and the balance of 150 in the other 2. Now, why do you want to have separate basins? Because we will go see that little sign. It has a beautiful picture. Why do you want to have separate basins? Basically, if you get a crack in one, you can drain it. You still have water in the other ones. There's backup. Good. So we'll just check out this side. It's pretty cool. Oh, here we go. Here's your bluestone from the Catskills. Bluestone, that's the stone on top. Now, the stone for the walls of the reservoir is granite. Different stone, held together by cement. But the coping stone, this top stone, is the bluestone. Yeah, that was just like they redid the paths. So I guess they. All right. I love. Do you have these? So if you want visual images of them, just say so. Email that came to you, and we'll send them to you. This is the steam engines. And if you're into this stuff, the Connecticut Antique Machine Association has machines just like this, and twice a year, fall and spring, they power them up, and you can see a steam engine running. Very cool. You'll notice the 3 basins. These were the first 2. The gatehouse that they shared. That's it. This is the 3rd basin, equal in size of the first 2 combined. This is that gatehouse. Okay, you'll notice there's no trees. They had different ideas about the impacts of the environment back then. This is from the 30s. This is when they just built the Jackie Robinson. Sorry, that's not the right side. This is the Jackie Robinson. Right there.
Which used to be called
Interborough. Other questions? Cool. So this was, again, at the bottom of the hill on Atlantic Avenue. Conduit flows into Atlantic, and then into the pumping station was on the corner of Atlantic and Logan, pumped up 4th Street Avenue, fill in the reservoir.
Did they chlorinate the water back in those days? Or?
No, but they did start chlorinating the water, I'd say by the teens. Yeah. And so one of the parts of the building was for the chlorine tanks.
Was there any treatment or filtering at all, or
Just the chlorine. And it was the same at with the Croton water.
so? But before they chlorinated, nothing. Just
So that the idea was that they try to protect the water. That's why they thought they were protecting it by not having any trees, so that the leaves wouldn't blow in.
Is there any issues that ever arose from the water getting contaminated by some outside force other than just sewage?
Other than sewage?
bird poop.
The water was
Any intentional situations that they...
up until the latter part of the 1800s. the water was considered good quality. One of the issues was that as eastern Queens and Nassau County were developed, the water quality was not as good. Does that answer your question? And another reason to merge with New York City. So they didn't have enough water, and it wasn't that great quality by the end of the 19th century.
Was it like pretty well protected that just the regular individual couldn't walk into when the water was being held, or were people like swimming in it? Was it kind of
So
like
there was a reservoir keeper's house.
Okay.
And originally it was there, but when they built the highway, they had to move it to the other side. And so it would have been there. That was the new reservoir keeper's house. So people would not swim in it, but that was his job. There's only one reservoir keeper's house left in the 5 boroughs, and that's in the Bronx. And it's at a place that no one's ever heard of, called the Williamsbridge Oval, which also used to be a reservoir. That was fed by the Bronx River. Other questions? All right, let's keep going. Bluestone. Again, it's the same stone as what's on top of the walls. This is bluestone, same as what's on top of the walls. You can see it's kind of bluish. And again, it comes from the Catskills. The path is crushed bluestone. Eventually, so it's appropriate. Eventually, the Catskills waters that were activated in 1917 would have a direct connection into the Ridgewood Reservoir. So eventually this would be filled. Outside water coming from Houston and Island will come to the Catskills. Right? Because as you saw, the distribution system had already been set up from the Ridgewood Reservoir. This path was also fixed up in 2011, starting in 2011 and reopened in 2013. So the plants that you're looking at are all native grasses. These were immune and active, and we'll see a couple of foreign greenery. And again, a native plant. There's a gardener that is shared by Forest Park and Highland Park. They're administered from the same office, but Forest Park gets the gardener 25 days a month. Highland Park gets the gardener 5 days a month. Oh, just to the top of the wall. Yeah, it was 20 feet deep.
It's one gardener for this massive.
He doesn't go in the basins. He just does these paths and the flower gardens down on the by the parking lot. But I mean, even still, this is a big path. Yeah. So, so I've been here and I've had to, trim back this stuff because we had the borough president coming and I wanted it to look decent. So I came at 6 o'clock in the morning. Don't repeat this. And I cut this. But before I cut this back, I mean, it was like that. So you have this very real equity issue or inequity issue, and we're trying to address that. As another example, Forest Park has a golf course. The bathrooms are always open at the golf course. The golf course is always open. When I come here in April, I couldn't even get in the gate. With a class of 30 students. Because the Parks Department didn't want to open the gate. Same thing with the bathroom. So you had people peeing on the walls of the bathroom because they couldn't get inside the bathroom. The bathrooms were open at Forest Park. Yeah, this is a Sunday afternoon. So again, there's this issue of equity, and as more people come to visit the park, which is a big reason why we're doing 9 tours during open house weekend, is to get as many people here because it's an incredible resource, and it's really an opportunity to to share this treasure with everybody. Yes, my friend.
What are these benches?
These are granite. Yeah, granite is a very strong rock, but I think a very beautiful rock. Other questions?
Is it true that when you provide beautiful space, you improve the neighborhoods around it?
Yeah.
Like Lincoln Center.
Yeah.
That was a shitty neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing that could be a good development of the rezoning of East New York. I don't know if you guys heard about the rezoning. So neighborhoods are zoned for particular uses. That's something that the city council decides on, and it's like a codified thing. So if you're a residential neighborhood or you're zoned as residential, you can't build a factory or something like this. If you're in an industrial area like Bushwick, you can't build a condominium. So East New York is a pretty low density residential area. It was the first neighborhood to get rezoned. Now, it is also the poorest neighborhood in the city and has been for decades. It has been rezoned for bigger buildings and mixed use residential and commercial. So hopefully it will see some economic revitalization. Affordable housing was part of that plan, but it's also the closest neighborhood to the park, so hopefully that will play a role in drawing more good attention to this park. For many years, this was not a good or safe place. This was a place it was partly a dangerous place. And but times have changed, and it's time to catch up. Please. To the Parks Department credit, they have seasonal workers, and they have like armies of them, and they do clean the park, and that's to their credit. It's a heavily used park, especially the part by the parking lot and the ball fields. And there's a whole other part to the park that I'll point out when we get to the southern end, and it's down on Jamaica Avenue, which is down the hill. But it's this is Highland Park, and at the bottom of the hill they just call it Lower Highland. They call it this Upper Highland. Yeah, but it's actually 2 different boroughs. Right now we're in Queens. When we get to the south end, we're actually in Brooklyn. So it's it makes it a little bit more complicated that way. At the same time, it also makes more funding available to the site, because city council members can advocate for capital dollars.
How did the Brooklyn Reservoir end up in Queens?
Right. So Brooklyn bought these lands, and all the way out to eastern Long Island. Brooklyn owned all those properties, and so that it could have water.
They owned land in Queens.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, one more thing I was wondering is, do all of the basins still collect water like this?
Oh, thank you for asking. Only Basin 2 has water in it. So Basin 3 is, as you see, is all forested over. Basin 2 has water. On the other side is Basin 1, and that's also forested over. I should mention that So altogether, all three basins are 50 acres. There are 8 unique ecologies, from freshwater pond to upland forest to birch forest. I don't remember all 8 of them, but I can send you a diagram with all different 8 ecologies. So it's a unique ecological resource, from that perspective. If you wanted to visit 8 unique ecologies that are right here, you would have to drive to Connecticut to get up to all 8 of them. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Now I was going to ask, like, as far as the lay of the land, I mean, it'll, when you guys do get the funding and everything, to kind of change everything over as to how you would like it, be open to the public, to, be able to hit the trails and check things out?
So as we see it, there should be controlled access. And it should be through that, hopefully that will eventually be an interpretive center.
Where the parking lot is there?
Where the gatehouse is.
Okay.
Yeah. And there should be an egress, and I'll show you where a possible egress might be.
Okay.
And also the parking lot, that makes sense because that's the closest access.
Where you can park. And with it, as far as like the different trails and whatnot, would it be, I guess, interconnected then through the 3, or would you kind of just start at one side of the reservoir and then work your way?
I think a master plan is the best way to go. I don't know if that's how the funding will be allocated.
Sure.
But it's a good question. A very good question. Are you into this kind of urban time and stuff?
No, I'm just curious. Just curious as to, will it eventually be like will almost be like a prospect park, or will have that feel where it's like kids and families can just kind of roam through and just kind of relax.
I think it will. And in November, the Parks Department will be having another planning meeting. And so, if you're interested in that, just stay tuned, and we'll let you know when that is, and you can give your input. Other questions? Okay, good. We'll keep going. We still have a ways to go. Lots more to see and do. Okay, let's stop here for a sec. This is one of my favorite trees. So this is a sassafras tree. I love this tree for many reasons, but one is that it has 3 different kinds of leaves. It has a leaf that looks like a football, a simple leaf. It has a leaf that looks like a mitten, and it has a leaf that looks like a chicken foot. Watch yourselves. Runner coming through. This is poison ivy. And not touch that. I've touched it too many times. And I'm going to break off a piece of bark. And you scratch off the do it better. And you smell that. Tell me what it smells like to you. Lemon? So sassafras was used by many cultures. Native Americans would make tea from its roots. It's a native plant. It grows all the way down through the southeast that is. And its leaves would be ground up and put into gumbo as a thickening agent. The leaves were a thickening agent. Did I say that the roots were used to make tea? Did I mention that? I did. Also, tea and also a drink called sarsaparilla. So this is the sassafras tree.
Sort of like root beer?
Right, like root beer.
So you're going from a little gentle. Is this the same?
Yeah,
tree?
same tree. Yeah, it grows almost like a weed, but it's a native plant. So I like it, and it's awesome. It turns this beautiful red leaves. Okay, we'll keep going.
Yeah, I can see why it's sort of it does smell. Yeah, root beer. It smells like the sassafras. Sarsaparilla.
Yeah.
It smells like that.
great.
I didn't get the email thing.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So we got lots of interest. Of course. Yeah. Goldenrod. They're really cute. They just want to hold your hand. Oh, there's a warbler. So these are the New England asters that are, you still have flowers on them. It's a beautiful flower. But these used to be them. Hello, hello, hello. More sassafras. Got the black and white border.
I don't see it.
It's in the trees. You have to back up a little bit. So there's a warbler. You get the black and white warbler.
Oh, there it is. I see it.
Now it's over there.
Oh, here comes it.
Oh, cool. There's a blue. So there are 125 species of birds that have been identified here. Again, this is 50 acres. There are dozens of nesting species that live here, including warblers, goldfinches, Baltimore orioles, and we'll actually see what's left of the Baltimore oriole nest in the spring. Yes, sir. Esther? Not this one, this one. I'm not sure what the name of this grass is, but it's also a native grass. The gardener is very knowledgeable. Oh, thank you. So when they started doing the survey for the wetland designation, they surveyed all the plants. And I have a list of, there's 175 of them. So if you want that list, I'm happy to send it to you. 4 of them are either on the threatened or endangered species list for New York State. Yeah. So this is literally it's an ecological preserve. And as Jeff had asked, none of this did man have any role in other than walking away from it. So it's incredible.
So how many of those 175 were native as opposed to invasive?
It's about half.
And the invasive would have come with the water or out of the air?
Out of the air, birds. And we're about to go to another viewing area, and then we're going to talk about the invasives that are the bane of my existence, those tall grasses by the water. We'll talk about that at our next stop. It's a big city. right? Military? Military? Or
Well,
other
he
part?
was in the military, but
Okay.
there's a huge contingent of Chinese Americans who are
Okay,
buried there.
interesting.
Mhm.
It's also, so the Cypress Hills Military Cemetery, if you choose to continue walking after we finish our tour, you'll see a little bit to the east, adjacent to the reservoir, is the Cypress Hills Military Cemetery. It's the second largest military cemetery in the United States after Arlington. And there are soldiers buried there going back to the Civil War. This here, I just learned what it was because we had the Queensboro president come and visit last week, and we didn't know what it was, and so she found out in less than an hour. So it was an alarm system. Because we're up on top of a hill, and this used to hold water, it potentially could be a hazard for the neighborhood that's below us. So if there was a breach or something, the alarms would go off, and people would have to, run to safety. That's what this was. Just learned that.
It's a trivia about the cemetery. Jackie Robinson and Piat Mondrian are buried there.
No kidding. Yeah. And Harry Houdini also close by. Yeah. So I'd like to point out two things. First, closest to us is this fence. This is a recreation of the fence from 1858. The original fence still exists in between basins 2 and basin 1. Again, this is basin 3. Basin 2 has water in it. Basin 1 is another forest. So in between basins 1 and 2 is the original fence. This is a recreation. Interestingly, the fence around the reservoir in Central Park looks exactly the same. Right? Because they were built the same year. Ridgewood Reservoir was built by the city of Brooklyn. Central Park Reservoir was built by the city of New York. 2 different cities, 2 different reservoirs. It was more recent. When Jackie Kennedy was around, it was a chain link fence. In 2010 or 11, they found a section of old fence in the water itself. There was some recreational divers that went in. They found this section of the fence, not knowing about Ridgewood Reservoir, and independently, there's many wealthy families around the reservoir. Some family. It's in their annual report. I looked it up one time. But same fence, both made at the Hecla Iron Works of Williamsburg. And if you go up Berry Street in Williamsburg, you'll see there's a building that says Hecla Iron Works. It's no longer active, but it was. So this is the bane of my existence. These Phragmites. These are an invasive plant. You'll see it's a monoculture. Nothing can compete with this invasive plant that's not native, that has no competitors. So it takes over. It is literally choking the water. And unless something happens, there's not going to be any water left, which would be a shame because there's ducks that overwinter here. There's migrating birds. We said 125 birds come through here, through different species. They drink the water. So Parks Department needs to do something, but they don't. And so that's a problem. So come out in November, pay attention if you're active and inclined and want to voice your concern. So this is an incredible treasure for New York City. Another reason for that is we're literally in the heart of Brooklyn and Queens. We're on the Brooklyn and Queens border. We're right smack dab in the middle. And there are 750 schools, in Brooklyn and Queens, 500,000 students. This is an incredible resource, right smack dab in the middle. This should be of interest. A lot of effort, but eventually, once it's cut back and gone, and you rip out as many roots as you can with a bulldozer or a machine, you cover the ground with black plastic. They're doing this at Prospect Park currently, and it can't grow back because it has no sunlight. And you do that repeatedly for a couple of years, and you plant native plants, and eventually you've won. NYC H2O is effective at recruiting volunteers. We've had weeding events pulling invasive plants from this area and further down a few times, and we've had upwards of 60 people at each event. We've had beach cleanups with upwards of 150 people, and we do that 4 times a year. Those beach cleanups 4 times a year. We can, we're confident, beat this back, but the Parks Department needs to step up. It's been long enough. 2004. Let's make it happen. So, okay. Other questions?
How successful are you to advocate within the neighborhood for this park?
How successful? We've had 4 community meetings. 2 2016, 2 in 2017. We got the Department of Transportation to come to the meeting to agree to make the crossing safer. We wrote the landmark application, so hopefully by December this will be a national landmark. We got the Queensborough president here 2 weeks ago. We've had the Brooklyn Borough president. That's why I had to cut back the grass myself. We've had the council members here. We got the city to cancel their plans to bulldoze the walls, and the plan to put in turf fields and cut down the trees. So I'd say we have a good track record, and the community trusts us, including the community boards and the neighborhood organizations, like the YMCA, which is at the bottom of the hill. Let's get going so we can let this group come in. And so, to answer your question, good. All right. You just smell it. So I'm just going to point out, we talked about battling invasives. This is one of the areas where we had our volunteer a weeding session. This is a plant called mugwort, like Hogwart from Harry Potter. So it's fragrant. It's used for teas. It's used for medicinal purposes. It's not native. Left unchecked, I'll show you another area. It'll swallow up trees. We beat it back. We pulled them, and we planted these native plants. We can do it. This was a year's work, and we did it.
Which one is this? Is it this?
Yeah, that's the. It takes time, but eventually, with enough effort, the native plants will come back. They just need a chance. Remember, the native plants are part of the ecosystem. They have insects and birds that eat them. That's part of the ecosystem. That's what an ecosystem is. The invasive plants, the not native plants, don't have things that go after them. So up in this tree here, there's what's left of a Baltimore oil plant. Basically above my head is the what's left of the Baltimore Orioles nest. It's kind of just dangling.
Oh.
If you really want to see it and you don't see it, just can you go straight up from where I am? Yeah. They like to make those nests just dangling down. Again, this is the New England asters. I think they're beautiful. This is a plant called boneset. It also had, it's also a native plant. It has medicinal properties. In the old days, they used to use it for broken bones, to set the bones. Hence the name boneset.
Does it work?
Sorry, does it work? I don't know. This is goldenrod. Again, boneset and goldenrod. Questions? Okay, keep going. And we were able to hire the architecture firm and the landscape architecture firm to do a vision plan. And so as part of that vision plan, we mapped out the 80 colleges and put it in a picture to show that you have to go 80 miles or 90 miles to get as far as the vision colleges. We have some mock-up drawings of what this path would look like and so forth, and a gatehouse that was restored. Okay. So, if you did a little bunny hop, right beneath your feet would be these two giant water pipes, 7 feet in diameter, coming out of this wall from 4th Tube Avenue that's down at the bottom of the hill. So that those pipes came up, it would spill the water into the spillway. Some of the initial dirt that was in the water would settle out before it spilled over that part of the granite wall. So this is where the water came in. This is the southern end. I haven't forgotten about the glacial moraine, but we're going to talk about that once we get an opening in the brush to see better. These plants here are Royal Polonia, or another word is a princess tree. Next to it is also, so this is from China, so is the mulberry tree. Mulberry trees were brought here in the 19th century for silk. Silkworms only eat the leaves of mulberry trees. Philadelphia used to be called Silk City. South Jersey was and Philly were the centers for the silk industry.
Say the name of the enormous leaf tree?
So,
Polonia?
Yeah, Royal Polonia, also from China. It has a beautiful flower that's kind of like the color of your shirt, a little bit more pink. And so it was brought here for ornamental purposes, but as we'll see in a little bit, it makes a lot of fruits, and those fruits have hundreds of seeds in it that blow in the wind, so it becomes invasive. Oh, I walked right by it. Where my friends are standing right behind them, this is all the mugwort. So we actually pulled this out, and we did not actually get a chance to fight it back. We planted trees that you don't see. That's what I was saying. Unless you cultivate your garden, the invasive plants will take over. And so this is the mugwort. Smell the same as the other one? Anyway, this is the same mugwort that you were smelling before.
Why does it look different?
Oh.
How's the seeds?
Does that look more familiar?
Yeah.
So this is an area where we were not able to tend to, and so you see the difference. Okay. Questions? That I think is called chokeberry, and that's poisonous, so that's why they call it chokeberry. Yes, the tree that's So again, it's a native plant. It plays host to many different species. So if you wanted to compare, here's another concrete example. The oak tree plays host to 500 caterpillars. The Royal Paulownia, 2. Royal Paulownia.
The Royal Paulownia, where it comes from, does it host more creatures?
Sure.
Because that's where it's native?
Yes, exactly.
And then does it not take over because there are other plants that also have power there? Or?
Well, other plants and other insects. Like my friend there just noticed on the milkweed there were several wasps that were doing their thing on the milkweed plant. So those plants have insects and animals that eat them. So they have a competitor. So here's a more mature Royal Paulownia tree. The leaves aren't as big. And you can see the fruits, the hundreds of fruits. Inside each of those fruits are hundreds of seeds. And those seeds blow in the wind and get sent all over the place. So, Royal Paulownia.
Is the fruit edible or?
No, inside is just
Fruit seeds?
yeah. It's not edible for humans. Questions? Okay, we keep going. The leaves look more like the other leaves.
Look at these.
Hey, what is this? What is that vine? What's that vine?
So, I don't know. You got me. We have we have a visual archive of all the different plants. So it's on our website. So you can look it up when you get home. Yeah.
Yeah, the colors of these berries are really
Beautiful, aren't they? Yeah.
If you look up close, they're kind of mottled, I think. I don't know. There's one in big over here.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It almost doesn't look real. Huh. Incredible. It looks like a jelly bean.
Should we try eating them?
No.
I would not try that. Just kidding.
Right. Well, it's a good question. So originally when this was built, it was to fill cars. And then All right. Huh? This again is the new England after. We also have the wagons. There's a roller skater coming. Views of humanity. Please help to hold open the map.
I was hoping for a better answer. For a real reason, but
No, yeah. It would be, I mean, what an incredible opportunity that would be, you know? That's filled with water, both basins. And if you went there recently, you would see that they actually cut back the vegetation because the roots compromise the structure of the wall. So these trees growing out of the wall is not a good thing, please, Diane. So that needs to be addressed here. Again, we're at the Ridgewood Reservoir. Looking south is Jamaica Bay, and you can see Rockaway in the distance. Idlewild is, you can't really see it, but that is now JFK Airport. And so all this, Jamaica Bay, used to be marshland. And then it was developed by and large, and when Hurricane Sandy happened, all this land that historically just flooded because of its wetlands, flooded again. Except this time, people's houses were there, and they flooded, and they wondered, hey, why is my house flooding? Well, you built on a wetland, and that's what happens. A little bit more about the glacial moraine. Clearly, we're standing on a hill. And if you look a little bit more closely, you can see the contour lines of this map are close together. It's pretty steep here. We're up 160 feet from Jamaica Avenue, which is pretty much at sea level, right? Sea level. So what's going on with the topography? As Diane pointed out, we're standing on a hill that was formed by glaciers. The glaciers were this mile-high sheet of ice, hundreds of miles long, massive, that would just basically bulldoze everything in front of it, including huge rocks. Those rocks would be collected in the glacier. The glacier melted and left all those rocks behind. And this is what you see, all this highlands, all these mushed together or close together contours. Those are all hills. Those were all the big boulders from the glacier were deposited when the glaciers melted. Okay. We're standing right next to a remnant of the ice age of the glacier. Raise your hand if you saw the movie Ice Age. Okay. So in the movie there are woolly mammoths, mastodons. These were giant furry elephants, or ancestors of elephants that roamed during the Ice Age. They were so strong, they could take a tree like this. This is a honey locust, it's native. These are its fruits. This is the fruit of a honey locust. Rip it down and eat all the leaves. That's a lot of leaves. But the honey locust developed a defense mechanism, namely those spikes. So that's how the honey locust ate. If you come around, you can see the spikes over here. See? So that's how the tree protected itself from the woolly mammoths that used to roam here during the ice ages.
They would pull down.
by trunk. Yes, sir. What is the? Oh, I don't know. Good question. But this is moss and this is lichen. Very observant. Again, this is a honey locust. It's a strong tree. All right, I've been talking for a long time. Question? So one more thing. So the boulders are underneath us. The sand, the finer material, was kept washing out, and that's why Jamaica Bay is sandy. Other questions, sir?
I know you mentioned like the oyster project in the water and stuff.
Yeah. So it's a good question. Unfortunately, the science has shown that the oyster reefs that the New York Harbor Foundation are planting, they haven't really been taking off. They've sustained their populations, but they haven't really regenerated. And so it's not clear yet. But hopefully, as the harbor continues to improve, another map. So, modern water system. Okay. So we're now oriented, not exactly right. This is south, that's north. But here are the 5 boroughs of New York City. Okay. Thank you. Here are the 5 boroughs of New York City. Here we are at the Ridgewood Reservoir. Those are the Catskills. That's where our water's coming from nowadays. More about that in a moment. But to Ryan's question, these red S's, these are the sewage plants. These treat our water after it leaves our house. The sewage gets treated. You're welcome to stand closer. And then it goes back into the water. Notice that every sewage plant is right on the water. There's 14 sewage plants in New York City. Water gets clean, returned to nature. So back to your question, there is a chance that the waters, will restore enough to support oysters, but my understanding is that the Billion Oyster Project hasn't seen the oyster reefs that they've started actually propagate any more than what they've planted. Does that answer your question? That being said, the health of our harbor is much better because we are treating our water. We're not putting in raw sewage in it. And it was as recent as 1987 that there was just raw sewage going into our waters. And that was when the most modern or the most recently built plant is this one, the North River plant, the one where Riverbank State Park is on 145th Street and the Hudson River. Right there. Up until 1987, everyone that now sends their sewage here was sending their sewage right into the Hudson River. So when I was a kid, before 1987, my family didn't go to the beach that much. It wasn't that pleasant. Questions? Okay, one more thing. So where does our water come from today? It comes mostly from the Catskills, a little bit from the Croton. Now, I'm going to stand over here. So this is our largest reservoir, but notice that it's just one of these many large reservoirs. This one reservoir is as big as, you're going to fly down 100 miles, is as big as Manhattan. That one reservoir. Let me do that again. A Shokan is pretty big, but the Pacton is bigger still. So again, I'm going to fly down all the way to New York City, down to Manhattan. That one reservoir is as big as Manhattan. So, 140 billion gallons of reservoir, 300 million. So much, much larger, orders of magnitude larger water coming from up there. Also surrounded by a giant nature preserve. So cleaner water, more plentiful, no need for this reservoir anymore. Pull the plug, the water goes out, you get a forest 40 years later.
But they all seem to have like intermediate reservoirs.
Yes, sir. That's right. You want to have supplies closer. Because what happens if you have to fix this? You need to have something closer. And that's why there's this one and this one. These are active reservoirs. So is this.
And the red lines are all underwater, underground.
Yes, that's right. Deep, pretty deep underground for the most part. And especially these that go underneath the Hudson River, they have to go all the way down to the bedrock, 1,000 feet down. So they have to go down the length of the Chrysler building to just get to the bedrock to go up the tunnel underneath the river. That's right. And so as Jeff points out, there are 3 water tunnels in the city proper, and they're still working on this tunnel number 3 one. You're welcome to have a digital copy of this map too. We're all about sharing and learning.
Are you guys affiliated also with like the Gowanus Canal cleanup and all that as well?
So, okay, that's a Superfund site, and so we're affiliated in this capacity. We're partnering with the Gowanus Canal Conservancy next Sunday, and we invite everybody to come. We will be painting the path of the an old stream called the Sassian Stream on the corner of Union and Bergen, by the bamboo and ice cream shop. And we'll be doing that with an artist that she highlights nature in her work. And after that, we'll have a panel discussion with the artist and a historian and a map maker and the Gowanus Canal Conservancy to talk about New York City's old water streams. And we have more maps there. So they're a partner organization, but they do great work at the canal. And one of the things they'll talk about is the work that they're doing, like they're opening a new garden soon. Their horticulture manager will be on the panel, and she'll talk about that. Other questions? Okay, we still have a little bit of walking to do, so we'll just fold this up. Actually, if you don't mind, yeah, let's do it separately. I'm gonna put 2 people in charge of that one, and then 2 people in charge of this. Thank you very much. Sure. You good?